Hi, Penny. Everybody, welcome Penny. This is Penny Tremblay. I'm so excited to have her here today. Penny is a genuine entrepreneur. She's been being an entrepreneur for over 20 years, founding the Tremblay Leadership Center with relationship strategies, training, keynotes internationally for 20 plus years. Thousands have benefited, I'm sure multiple thousands. Have benefited from the skills and confidence to be productive, play nice in the sandbox, and climb the ladder of success. Her advanced mediation certificate from Harvard, combined with years of conflict resolution facilitation in the workplaces, brings stories, experiences, and guidance for productive and profitable businesses. Penny, super excited to have you here today. I think I was telling you right before is we used to say all the time, you got to play nice in the sandbox. If you can't play nice in the sandbox, you got to figure it out. And so your book, which was released June 15th of this year, resonated really well with me because it's exactly right. Conflict is such a thing and it's not going away. So again, thank you for coming. So excited to have you with us. First, just tell us a brief overview of the key principles behind the Sandbox Strategies for the new workplace.
Sure. So what I did was I took the PLAY and the NICE and I created I used that as a framework to add in 8 play nice strategies to increase one's sandbox factor. Because like you said, Elena, back in the days when you were in corporate, how people get along with each other is equally as important as their technical training skills, because people in the workplace, they don't necessarily quit jobs, they quit managers or they quit toxic workplaces. And so for your promotability, you want to be able to do what you do well and, help others thrive and do well as well. And so the focus of my book, Sandbox Strategies for the New Workplace, is conflict resolution from the inside out. So what I have found over the years of being, doing mediation work and workplace restorations where an entire business or team is toxic or is the culture is horrible, and is that most of conflict resolution is an inside job, meaning like when we're okay, the world just seems to clean itself up. and really at the end of the day, we can't fix difficult behavior that's not our own either, right? And so the framework play nice is to position yourself for good play, really show up. I use the sandbox analogy. We don't play nice in the sandbox by turning our back and reverting to our corner and, being mad at the people behind us or picking up our toys and going home. So when there's conflict in the workplace, we need to, turn inward to the people that we're having conflict with and figure it out, right? Build it out or tear it apart or break it down or whatever. So that's positioning yourself for good play, is, being willing and able to face the center of the core of the business or the people or the person. And the second strategy, the L, is about lightening our load, because we're all packing around baggage from the past.
Absolutely. I'm laughing. Yes.
And it gets entangled with other people because they have baggage from their past too. So something that you say might trigger them and so the A is active listening, which, is that one tip that if I'm ever asked, just give me the one tip, that's it. The Y is your why. Like, why does this job even matter? Because when we're grounded in a strong why, we can deal with any what. And, that's a Viktor Frankl quote, man's search for meaning, but it just resonates in so much that we do. We need to have a strong reason beyond ourselves sometimes to push through the difficult conversations or the people or situations that we're really not comfortable with, to get through to the other side of it. And that's the word play. Do you want me to keep going with the nice?
Yeah, sure. I would love for people to hear the nice.
Okay.
Be
So
nice. Everybody should be nice.
and in nice is about nurturing relationships, because a lot of ways that we can prevent conflict is having good relationships that are, solid, and that there's a lot of trust, and we don't necessarily make each other wrong. And then the I is inclusion. I mean, we're living in a very fill in the blank, multicultural, multi-generational, we're working in workplaces that are very different from what they were 30 and 40 years ago. So, and we still have people in the workplace in their 70s and 80s, and probably some of your listeners, your audience, who are business owners who have been around a long time. And then they get this like, well, when I started, or when I was, and so we have to really be inclusive, recognizing that we're all different, but we all want the same things. And we need to harness those differences, because it makes us bigger and better and stronger. And the E is about empathy. And man, I can't imagine a world without empathy, and how much it's needed today. So that's the Play Nice formula, or the Sandbox strategies for the new workplace.
I love it. I love that. What I love too is that it takes us back to being a kid. And there's some things as adults we forget, but really we learned a lot, a lot as kids on really how do you play somebody takes your toy. So I love that. Thank you for that. Play nice. That's amazing. You kind of talked a little bit about it, but today's dynamic is ever evolving. How do you see the role of conflict affecting the overall morale and productivity? And how, how have the recent shifts towards, remote flexibility, how has that increased workplace conflict?
Okay. Well, going back to something that you said that's so clever about, we learned so much in the sand, in the early years of playing in the sand. One of the things that, we don't realize is that the nature of sand itself is its impermanence. It shifts and changes, right? Like our sandcastle flops over, or somebody stomps on it, or if we're at the beach, a wave rolls in and then it's gone. And that's what COVID did. That's what the pandemic did. It wiped out everybody's castle. And we all had the opportunity to rebuild it. And we still do, if we haven't rebuilt our own business castles exactly the way that's ideal. The pandemic, post-pandemic, is a great opportunity to do that. Some of the conflict that I understood, because we did some research, and you know what, for your audience of business owners and leaders, what I did first off, when I was at home with like nothing to do and nowhere to go, because all my speaking engagements and training just fell off my calendar, I went on a listening tour. And anybody can do this. And as a business to business person, great idea. You call up your customer and you say, hey, how's it going? I'm really thinking about you, and, just wondering, like, how's it going for you? And I asked a few questions just verbally, like, because I didn't know if there was going to be any conflict anymore, because, nobody was at work. So I thought, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong business.
It stops. Conflict just stops.
I know.
Wouldn't that be great?
Well, what happened was I learned a lot just from that listening tour, and I took a lot of notes. Then we later went on to do a formal survey, and we got 550 respondents. But here's to answer your question. One thing that I noticed was, because of remote working, there was a lot more conflict brewing, but managers weren't aware of it. So when I pulled apart the data from the survey, the employees thought that there was more conflict than the managers thought. And I thought, oh, here's a sandstorm brewing here, and it's all gonna, explode. Another thing is, when people are working remotely, they're spinning in their own head. So imagine this: you walk into work, or sorry, you drive to work, you park, you walk in, you see people, you go to your office, your desk, whatever, and you get a lot of communication, right? Even if you haven't said anything yet, even if you haven't even said good morning to anyone, you know whose car's here, the receptionist is in, there's people in the boardroom, you see the bulletin board, you see you're getting, when you're at home, crickets. And so in that lack of like exchange of information, a lot of people were wondering like, what's going on? Am I doing everything? Is anyone doing anything? Where am I? Is the pack ahead of me? Am I behind? How come nobody's? And there was a lot of individual, like inner conflict that people had to, and I believe that it's still going on today, because even before the pandemic, one of the challenges that I would see working with office teams is that if there was a satellite office, they never felt like they were a part of the mothership. They felt like they were off on an island somewhere and isolated. And what about us? And they get everything and we get nothing.
Yes.
And so that's happening more. So that's some of the trends. Heightened stress. People are overburdened with more to do and less resources. The world is getting more, the cost of living more expensive.
Yep.
The whole like, vaccination versus non-vaccination. I don't know about you in Oregon, but here in Ontario and Canada, like we locked down for a long time. And I know people who have lost friends to this day because their values were different, right? And so just a lot of incivility going on that I don't think has been repaired quite yet.
Thank you. I love that word, incivility. And it's, Penny, you addressed something I think that's been underlining for years, but the pandemic just brought it to the surface, which is this personal insecurity. What's happening? It's been amplified, right? But I love that you address the internal conflict, not just others.
Yes.
Which seems very powerful in conflict resolution, is that you have to take ownership. So tell me, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make when they're confronted with conflict? Because I think of one mistake, and I don't know that these are yours, but I think of not being aware that you may be part of that problem.
Right.
Conflict.
So, I always say heat rises, right? If there's conflict down here, it's going to rise, and the managers are going to find out about it, or the upper managers and so on. I mean, maybe the conflicts is even up there, and then, the information sure filters down in a hurry, because when people are not connected, it. People
Yes.
around, it, right? So the number one mistake that leaders make when conflict surfaces is they avoid it. They act like an ostrich. They stick their head in the sand and just hope to God that it's going to go away. That magic fairy is going to come in overnight, or that, the dust is going to settle, and a month later that everything's going to be hunky-dory. But that is, nothing could be further from the truth.
Sticking your head, yeah. So sticking your head in the sand as an ostrich is not playing nice in the sandbox. Don't do it. It is not beneficial. But yeah, I think you're right. Just in my experience with leaders too, is always this, they'll just figure it out. And when it's that bad, they need help. They need that leadership to guide them through. Oh, thank you for avoiding it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah, please.
I got a call from a manager of an international company, and he had just found out about me that day at an HR meeting, and he said, we have a problem and we need you. So, okay, I do my workplace restoration with his team of about, let's say, a dozen people. I meet everyone one-on-one first, and then I'm about to bring them together for a group conversation. And I call up the manager. I'm like, did you know that this conflict has been going on for 15 years? He's like, yeah. I'm like, 15 years. Why didn't you call me sooner? Why didn't you do something? He's like, I just found out about you today. And he said, besides, Penny, we're engineers, and that people stuff, that's messy. I mean, and if you think about the personality style of like a highly technical person,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm not stereotyping, but I mean, there is a personality style out there that is all about, facts and figures, and they prefer tasks to people. And he said, we're engineers. That people stuff is way too messy. And I said, okay, well, okay, I just wanted you to know it's been going on a long time. He's like, oh, I know. Anyways, within a week, mission was accomplished. But here's an example of a leader who sticks his head in the sand because that's too messy. And I get it. It's uncomfortable. But, we either have to, as leaders, we either have to deal with this, or we have to bring in somebody who can. And so, the long and short of it is, how it all worked out was I brought these two, it was basically two particular people who were, they had no civility toward each other. Something happened. They just, one guy was retiring. They wanted the other guy to take over, but he wouldn't train him. And so, what ended up happening was, one of them left and went to a different department for the same company. So, that wasn't really the kumbaya fix that I like to see, but at least the organization didn't lose him. The magnitude, if you imagine conflict is like a rose, okay, there's two little seeds in the inside, and then all the petals surrounding it are like the effects of more stuff and symptoms and more things and more things and more things that just keep building on over time. Or you can imagine like conflict is like a snowball. It starts out little small, small, but as time goes on, it gets bigger and bigger as it's rolling along, and it lands on the manager's desk, like boom. So
you can't avoid it. You can't stick your head in the sand at that point, right?
Best time to deal with conflict is right away, when it's minor.
Yeah, so I find that too. A lot of people will bury their heads in the sand. And what I hear too, you talked about it being messy, is that it doesn't feel good. It's hard. And I would love for you to talk about what is it on the other side of that hard, right? So there's this conflict that's been going on for 15 years, the anxiety, the stress, people not eating, whatever goes around that conflict. What's on the other side? Yeah, it's hard. Things are hard, but what have you seen for leaders and teams that's on the other side of that conflict?
It's bliss. Right? I mean, imagine if you want to know what it's like. It's like if you and your significant other, you have a tiff, you have an argument, whatever, and like things blow up, and then there's nothing between you anymore. It's so when I say nothing between you, so that you can have everything. I learned this from a relationship that I had for a couple of years in my life, with somebody who, when we had a problem, we would talk about it. And it was like we had a conduit joining us as a couple. And when there was a crumb in the conduit, we cleared it. And then we had nothing in the conduit except wide open space. And it was like bliss. And we were so connected, and we were like so in love, and we were just so peaceful and so happy until there was another crumb, and then we would clear it. And then I got addicted to this feeling of like, oh my gosh, why would you want to carry things for 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years or 50 years, which is what happens in some workplaces and families. If you think about why people are estranged, the two little seeds of that rose aren't usually very big things, right?
Correct. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm contemplating family situations that I've lived with, that it's always comes back to, that was it. Like that's we made this big thing. Oh.
Right. And then so what's on the other side, really through the process of mediation, which when, let's say 2 people or 20 people can be in a mediation, but everybody has to want to be committed to something new and something better, right? If somebody's not committed, I don't work with them. Like, I don't know. I can't do your push-ups for you, buddy. So, you know, if you want to be more fit, like I can show you how to do push-ups. I can count for you as you're doing your push-ups. I can follow up with you next week to make sure you're doing your push-ups, but I can't do them for you. So if you don't want something better for yourself and you're not willing to put in the effort, I'm out.
Mm.
And I came about this close to asking a guy to leave my circle not too long ago, because we went around. I work in a circle once. I meet everybody one-on-one, and all their conversations are confidential with me. I bring them all together to talk about things, whether it's 2 or 52. And this one guy says, I'm going around the circle, like, are you committed to something better today? Are you committed? Are you committed? Are you committed? I get to him, I'm like, are you committed? He's like, nah. Like, well, what's meh? Like, yes or no? Are you committed? Yeah. Oh, well. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, you decide. What, yes or no? Once you decide, we'll move on. He's like, I pass. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go around, everybody's committed. I come back to him. I'm like, so buddy, like, are you committed to something new here? He's like, yeah, I guess. I'm like, oh, good. Because I was just about to ask you to leave and give you the day off. Because really at the end of the day, I think people have to take that chip off their shoulder and realize that if you want to be in a stance, and you're that rigid that you're not willing to be flexible and look for the openings and co-create something new with the people that you've been in conflict with, then how can you create something new? And for those who don't want to create something new, that's okay too. I'm not making them wrong. I get it. I have people in my life that I don't want to create anything new with, because I don't want to spend another minute with them if I don't have to. So, okay, I get to set my boundaries and pick and choose, who I will and won't spend time with based on how they've treated me in the past. Like, I'm not going to put up with abuse. I'm not going to put up with being like put down or, gossiped about and all of that stuff. And no, thanks. I don't have to. So, yeah, so I get it when people don't want to move forward, when people just say like, nope, never going to happen. Not doing that, not going there. Okay. Like, mediation's not an option then.
Right. Sometimes you have to change your sandbox.
Yes.
Right.
Where Stephen Covey says this in one of his 7 habits, it's go for win-win. There's no alternative. If both people or all people in a relationship can't be growing and winning, then you can't go for lose-win. You might think that you can settle for lose-win, but over time, the relationship will break down. And so the only other alternative is no deal. And we know this in business, like you write a proposal and they don't want to meet you with your price. They want you to do it for $10,000 less. And you go, well, let me know if you change your mind. I'll be here if you change your mind. But meanwhile, you're not going to go for lose-win just to,
Absolutely.
So the best answer of the proposal then is no deal. We don't have a deal. Wish each other well and move on.
I love that. I would like to hear too, you talk, one of the free giveaways you have are the mistakes that people make. I would love to hear though, whether it's an HR manager, right? Because we talk about HR being the people managers within a business, but HR leadership or business owners, I'd love to hear how they can be proactive and equip their managers, their team with the tools that they need to be able to handle the conflict so they can not wait 15 years. I still mind blown that it took them 15 years, but that helps them teach their team. You need to address it.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that I want to say about, that you're mind blown over the 15 years. One thing that I've learned is that these things, they create culture, right? So it's just the way it is around here. So you gotta know, like, you've got 2 guys in a workplace that don't get along for 15 years, becomes part of the culture, right? And then a manager that just accepts it to be like that, but new people coming in, they're there, and they're, you know, we're very perceptive human beings. So we get to understand very quickly what the culture is around here. And we want, you know, and culture shifting starts at the top. So that's one thing that I want to say about that 15 years thing. I think that leaders who have division or conflict on their teams, they definitely want to you know, deal with it, right? Some of the tips on how to deal with it, bring people together. Like most conflict resolution policies say, if you have conflict with somebody, it's your responsible to go and resolve the conflict. And if you can't, then go to your manager for help. Okay, so if somebody goes to their manager for help, the manager isn't going to take the responsibility of going to resolve the conflict for them, but that's what the manager usually does. And so the manager will hear somebody's complaint, like, you go to that person and you just, and I say everything, and the manager's like, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to him. And then they'll go to the other person and say, well, so-and-so said this and this and this, and they're just making matters worse because they can't do their speaking and listening for the other people any better than they can do their push-ups for them. So what the manager needs to do is bring them together and say, hey, you know, Tom and Mary, would you guys please come and let's have a conversation about this. And then the manager facilitates, like a mediator. One person talks, the other person listens, and then the other person talks, and they get to understand each other, right? And that's one of the biggest, I won't say tricks, because it's not a trick, skills or steps that I use in mediation. Get people speaking and listening to each other. You don't have to agree. You know, somebody might think something you did was totally on purpose and you raked them over the coals or you threw them under the bus, blah, blah, blah. And so hearing that, it's just our natural tendency to want to defend ourselves. But what we need to do is bite our tongue, open our ears, and just listen to what somebody is telling you, because that's their perception and that's their reality. And once they're finished telling you, you can say, okay, well, thank you for sharing that with me. Here's what I heard you say. You said this, and you think I did this, and you think I did that, and you think I did this on purpose. Am I hearing you right? Yes. Okay. Then it's the other person's turn to listen. And then once you get two people feeling understood, or 22 people or 52 people feeling understood, you're in a whole new place. You're in a whole new place, right?
It was interesting because just this last week, I was talking to somebody, a client, and it was that same thing. There's conflict.
Yeah.
And the comment was, well, just make it water under the bridge. Just let go of it and move on. And that's another thing I've seen leaders do, which is just let it go, be the bigger person, don't deal with it. But what really came to mind when you were speaking too is that this conflict can create and will create culture, and it may not be the culture you like. So you have to deal with that conflict to create the culture you like. So I love that. Thank you for that great reminder.
Yeah. And you don't have to deal with every conflict. Like, I agree with the letting it go, if you can let it go. If it's a safety concern, don't let it go. Right? Because safety never takes a vacation. So don't let that go. If it's abuse or something like that, no, like, stand up for yourself, speak up, let people know how their behavior is affecting you. Letting it go, like, you know, oh, this happened, should I let it go? Like, sometimes I think, like, 10 years from now, is this even going to matter? You know, like, they walked by and didn't say good morning, or you know, they ate my yogurt out of the fridge because they were working late and starving, and, you know, forgot to tell me the next day. And so, like, you know, for the price of a yogurt, really, am I going to harbor resentment for the next 5 years? In fact, I heard an interesting story the other day. My fiance was at a golf club, and he happened to have the opportunity to have play golf and have a lunch after with a very wealthy man, who said that once he found out what I did for a living, he said, you know, my brother and I, we had a falling out. We were in business together, and he took me for about $1 million. And my fiance is like, wow, that's a lot. And he said, yeah, but you know what? It took me a long time to realize that harboring the resentment wasn't worth $1 million. So I let it go.
Wow.
Here's my thing about letting it go.
Yeah.
If you're gonna let it go, you need to really let it go. That it's similar to like when you say to somebody who's mad, like, you know, how are you doing? And they go, fine. I'm fine. Well, they're not fine. They're just saying they're fine. So then don't say you're fine if you're not fine. Just say, I'm rattled. I'll get over it. It's not today. Thanks for asking. I'm working on it. Okay. So if you're going to let it go, great, let it go. And if you're not going to let it go, then deal with it. You know, come back and talk about it. This is what resolves conflict. Talking about it. Coming together. And this is one of the biggest problems with our digital era, is that people aren't talking to each other anymore. They don't have to. And so it's just too easy to not talk to people, delete them, block them, and, you know, just, you know, exit or wipe people off, write people off. And so we're not getting the skills to be tolerant and to be patient and to work through things. And that's really unfortunate because we need each other.
Oh, yeah, we do. You know, it's interesting. As I'm listening to you too, things, the couple things that have resonated with some of the other interviews I've done too, which is being really authentic and kind, like those two together, when you can be authentic, right? Which is not saying everything's okay when everything's not okay. I'm rattled, but I'll get over it. But being authentic can help as well as being kind.
Yeah.
And that's what I love too about what some of those tools that you're talking about, and is that letting it go could be the kind thing to do, because really it isn't that big of a deal. It's a yogurt, what have you. But that's great, great advice. I mean, if somebody can let go of something for $1 million, where most people are like, oh, that's so much, but it's true, right? The amount of money that you could get, yeah. It's.
But I think that you're bang on there, Elena, with authenticity, because I have seen so much shift when people have honest and authentic conversations. You know, like if you could just own your stuff, right? If you could just show up to a situation, you know, maybe you and I are sisters and we've been disconnected for a while, and we can just show up and be like, you know, I'm going to be really honest with you. I've been jealous of you for years. You know, you're smarter than me. You know, you're taller than me. You're more beautiful than me. It seems like mom and dad love you more than me. And I've just struggled with that. And, you know, the more I got to think about my own inner conflict with you, I am so jealous. Or, you know, I just feel like the underdog all the time. And when people can really just like come out with the fact that, you know, I'm fill in the blank, you know, I'm scared, I'm insecure, I'm just being really honest with you right now. I'm imperfect. The other person just like melts, because I mean, you know, the truth will set.
Oh, yeah.
that whole adage that the truth will set you free. I have seen it time and time again, and it just breaks down the walls.
That vulnerability just allows you to be you and not compete, right? Like I was listening to somebody says competition is a thief of joy, and that is spot on, because that's what keeps us in. And that makes me emotional, because I can picture in my mind when I've watched team members on my team, true transparency, authenticity, but they won't walk away. And honestly, nothing else has to be said. It's really interesting that I get you, you're human. All right. And they then let it go. It's beautiful to watch.
It's very beautiful. And you can't do that by text.
Oh, no way. No.
Like you can email till your heart's content, like I'm jealous of you and blah, blah, blah. Okay. But that's going to get read by through the lens of the eyes and the mood and the feeling and the resentment of the person who's reading it. You get face to face, just like you and I are right now.
Right.
You know, we shared that emotional and vulnerable moment because we're connected. We could see each other, we could hear each other, right? And so if you can't get face to face, get on a video chat. And if you can't get on a video chat, at least get on a phone call. And I think that, you know, that would be the best order of how to resolve issues. And by the way, those suitcases that I was telling you that we're all packing around, as you start to unpack some conflicts in your life, you make space for other tools, right? You make space for better things, and or you make space for handling the bigger ones that need to be worked on. So sometimes in a full day training or a keynote or something, I say, hey, at break time, I challenge any of you to resolve a conflict, or at least get the conversation started by letting somebody know that you want to. And people come back from break and I say, how many of you did it? And people put up their hand and say, you know what? I haven't talked to my sister in 5 years. I sent her a text. I said, I would really like to work on our relationship. She matters to me. And that makes me emotional, because I think, like, there's nothing beyond, like, there's nothing more important in people's lives than relationships. If you think about them on their deathbed, they're not asking for more money.
Never. Yeah.
They're not asking for more time at the office so that they could, like, get that promotion that they never got because someone else got it. They want good relationships. They want love, and they want peace, and they want, you know, everyone around them to be okay.
Yes. And I would tell you that the pandemic pulled connection away, that we're all craving that connection. It almost feels as if it's a prime time.
Yes.
Right. Because it's kind of like when it's really raw, that it could be a very prime time to rebuild those relationships. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Like, the future, pandemic came, pandemic went, but we're still dealing with the ramifications of that. And how do you see conflict resolution and your tips, this book that's phenomenal, how do you see that helping people really get back some of their lives, essentially?
Yeah, well, they have to take responsibility for it, you know, and I think that one of the biggest hangups when it comes to relationships is that people are just always blaming someone or something on their circumstances. And so, you know, that's Stephen Covey 101, habit number 1, 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yep.
Be proactive, take responsibility, you know, get clear on what you want and make it happen for you. Stop giving your power away by saying, oh, well, I had a bad childhood, or, you know, I had a bad teacher, or, you know, parent, or my father's an alcoholic, or, you know, I was abused as a child, and all of these horrible things. Yes, and yes, these happen. But the real thing is, what do you want to do about it? Like, do you want to just give that person all your power and say, well, I can never show up and be my strong and authentic and powerful self because you took something away from me when I was little? Or do you want to say, you know what, I'm taking that back. Give that back to me. You took that from me. Whether it's energetically, you do it through prayer, meditation, you write a letter, you go burn it, you go talk to the person, whatever. And you take responsibility for creating the life you want. I remember Jack Canfield, who, you know, Chicken Soup for the Soul. He is a counselor of some type, psychiatrist, psychologist, something like that. And he's counseling somebody, and they told him about their brutal past. And he said, I hear you. And then he said, so what? And they're like, what do you mean, so what? He said, so what do you want to do about it now? Right? So I think that people need to take responsibility for creating the life that really lights them up. And I did it. You know, I've been through a lot of conflict, and I do it with a journal. I write down what I want exactly in great detail, and I manifest it. And I don't just sit on my hiney and just say like, come on, when are you coming? I mean, I just write it down in detail, put it out there, trust it's going to happen, and then act as if it's already happening and do what I need to do to make it happen. And then trust. I mean, I'm spiritual, thank goodness, because I just trust in the universe that, you know, everything is always working out for me. And it is.
I love that. Thank you, Penny. Thank you so much. What a great ending to an interview. I thank you so much for your time. If you guys haven't yet, go buy her book. It is amazing. What I love too is that you talk about playing nice in the sandbox, that the skills that you're teaching, and this is what I would tell anybody, the skills that you're learning are applicable to personal life, right? Don't think that you're going to get this book and you're going to fix everything, because I will tell you, and Penny, you probably can attest to, that once you start to do that, even in the workplace, it will carry over into your personal life, and
Absolutely.
your personal relationships will get better. And everybody can use that. So if you don't have a business, if you don't have a team, and you're thinking, yeah, why do I need this? If for nothing else, go get her book for you personally, because just the tools that you give are phenomenal. So I just want to say thank you, one, for coming, but also thank you for taking the time to create the book, to have the mindset to really put this out there where many people can learn from it and benefit from it, because it takes a lot of work and it's a phenomenal idea. So I just want to say thank you and appreciate you for your time for that. And for those of you that don't know, well, not that you don't know, but Penny also has for everybody a free gift. I'm going to make sure I get this right, but it's a free download, The 5 Biggest Mistakes Leaders Make When Conflict Surfaces. It's a handout. Excuse me, you can see it in the comments. We'll put it in there for you guys. Check it out. It's free. Penny, thank you so much for giving of yourself and doing that. And actually, I did have one more last question before you leave. And I saw that you have I think the book is called, it has to do with giving. And I saw a picture on your website. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, I know it's a little off topic, but I'm a huge fan of when you give, you get, like you give. So could you tell us a little about that?
Called Give and Be Rich. And it's about giving, giving, just reaching in a little deeper and giving a little bit more. You know, some people say, I don't even have 50 cents at the end of the month. Okay. Can you give someone a smile? You know, can you give somebody a little bit more patience when you really are feeling like they don't deserve it? Can you help somebody across the street, catch a loose dog? I don't know. Just, we become rich by giving, just because it builds our self-worth, right? And the world really needs everybody to dig in and give as much as they possibly can right now in so many different ways, to help people who are homeless, lost their homes, storms, climate, COVID, this, that. It's a timeless principle. It came out in 2014. You can get that one right on my website or on Amazon. Sandbox Strategies for the New Workplace is published by Rowman and Littlefield. You can buy that at your favorite bookstore. And that's the one that's hot off the press.
Yeah, we're excited. So for those of you that are local, because we live in Redmond, we'll have that book also in our bookstore downtown Redmond, because we have a little independent bookstore, which I loved. And I saw that you have Indie Bound on there as well. So thank you for supporting that as well. You guys, thank you so much, Penny. So excited to have you here. You guys check it out. Make sure you get it and enjoy the rest of the event that's happening this week.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. This is a really important summit that you're putting on, and I'm really proud of you. Thank you for finding me and reaching out to me. I'm so happy to be a contributor, but I really want to take a moment to honor everything that you're doing, and I can't wait to publicize your event to my subscriber base, which is a few thousand people, and because we can always be learning more, especially as we're growing through uncertain times. And, we just have to keep reinventing ourselves, and birds of a feather flock together, or as another female leader taught me, a rising tide floats all boats, right?
Beautiful. Beautiful, Penny. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care and thanks for having me today.
Thank you.